This is the time to transition to the next part of our HLF Connect briefing, the panel sessions. As we mentioned right at the beginning, this first HLF Connect briefing has been the time to do something a little different. From our last in-person summit in Lund, HLF members expressed the interest to do something more collaborative, something more long-term. Then COVID happened. But we wanted to maintain this collaborative idea. From this came HLF Connect, connecting innovation ecosystems to work more collaboratively together. Bearing in mind the world circumstances, we decided to take the theme of COVID. We created 3 working groups looking at 3 different but overlapping themes inspired by the crisis. In our first working group, the theme was collaboration and the need to continue to work together, creating new collaborations and alliances. The second working group was about developing innovations either to address the COVID or stimulated by the effects of the COVID. And the third is about ecosystem resilience and the impacts in the short and the long term. These first working groups are just the start. In the long run, we want HLF Connect to be something that is driven by its members. Members that have mutual interests in a particular topic and that want to come together to explore that area, to exchange ideas and best practices. For such topics, there's no such thing as a bad idea. You might want to look more in depth into how innovation ecosystems grow startups, how they attract foreign investment. The topics are endless. So let's start with our first panel session. I'd like to welcome Gabriel Voisin-Fradin and Ed Mitchell for this first panel entitled Strategies for Integrative Innovation, Creating New Collaborations and Alliances. Gabriel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robert. Hello, everybody. So it's a great pleasure for me to first introduce Mr. Ferrari, President of Grenoble Alpes Métropole, who will first say a word of welcome. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to talk to you today, and especially in the frame of this panel 1, and to tell you some few things coming from this great territory, which is Grenoble Alpes Métropole. My name is Christophe Ferrari, and I am the president of the Grenoble Métropole. The metropolitan area is about 450,000 inhabitants, 49 cities that have decided to join their energy to build strategies in terms of economic development, tourism, also university and research, but also some very public services very important for people living in this area, such as rubbish collection, rubbish treatment, such as water distribution, and also water treatment when it is necessary. So as you see, the Metropole of Grenoble is very famous, known for a lot of things, for its research, for its university, but also for the economic actors that are working hardly and to build this innovative ecosystem, which is known to be one of the most famous in the world. I hope every one of you are doing well. Every one of you are in good health, especially during this very special year that we are all living all around the world. The COVID-19 has been something so rapid in terms of effects in our society that, you know, in France, the Metropole of Grenoble, and like all the metropoles, have decided to put a lot of their energy in building strategies to protect our citizens from this incredible virus that we meet. For example, the metropolitan area with the cities have decided to work on different strategies that could help people to protect themselves, and also to build some strategies to help the economic sector. Because, as you know, everything has stopped in March, and the thing started again in June for again to have some new stop in October until December. So it shows that the public sector is able to adapt its strategies to help the economic sector and to build some important public policies for the people. I'm very happy that the high-level forum can take place this year. The high-level forum is a moment where people can share their experience, can share their strategies, can think and can discuss about some new opportunities for our territories and for our development. I'm sure that next year the high-level forum will take place and we can meet again, not by a video, not by a video conference, but directly we can share moments together so that we can continue to build a more innovative world. Thank you very much.
And now I'm very happy to present you our 6 high-level panelists to this first panel under the moderation of Ed Mitchell, Head of Business Development at the European Synchrotron Research Facility, located in Grenoble. Hi, Ed. As you can see in this panel, we try to balance between Europe and Asia, women and men, innovation technopoles, cities, universities, representatives. First, we have Caroline Bouvard, Deputy General Director at Grenoble Alpes Métropole. As such, she is in charge of all the innovation policy of our local government. But she also have a great experience in international affairs. Caroline, welcome to this panel. Then we have Janekrishna. Thank you for joining us to this panel. Janekrishna, you are Executive Director for the Eastern Economic Corridor of Innovation, which represents a huge area in Thailand, both urban and rural. This will bring us interesting questions and point of view to our panel. Have a virtual seat with us. Harri, you are CEO of DIMECC in Tampere, Finland. You will bring us some northern light. It's a pleasure to welcome you virtually. Yusuke-san, I'm delighted to see you again. You are Director General of the city of Tsukuba, a sister city of Grenoble, and since July this year, a formal partner of the Métropole of Grenoble. I hope we will develop further projects together. Welcome to this panel. Mia, as a CEO of the Innovation Park Ideon in Lund, Sweden, you came in Grenoble 2 years ago and then welcomed us last year. I am sure that as a host city of a Synchrotron, you will highly appreciate our moderation. Welcome to our digitalized panel. And last but not least, we have the chance to welcome in live Karin Samuel, Vice President of the Université Grenoble Alpes, but also a Professor of Management in Innovation. Thank you to be here with us.
Thank you, Gabriel, and good morning, everybody.
Please join the session with us. So I will present you now the panel concept. So the idea here is to present you debate together, and this is the continuation of a 3 months working group, including all the ecosystem represented here in this panel. The original idea was to explore the impact of the COVID crisis on our innovation ecosystems, covering topics such as resilience, fragility of the startup nation model, relocation of industries, or international mobility. After a couple of calls, we decided finally to focus on integrative innovation. Integrative innovation is a concept that try to integrate differences in strategies, approaches, stakeholders, and capabilities and people. So we'll try to develop this in the following presentation and discussion. But the main focus is organizational, with some aspects about local and global within the organization or with partnerships. And we will see the differences and the similarities among the cases of each ecosystems. And finally, we also debate about the new format of the HLF, which is a kind of international collaboration as well. So we had several cases from each of the ecosystems. As you can see, we worked on a case of biorefinery development, and another one about smart farming in Thailand. Other cases about multidisciplinary and cross-organizational COVID recovery team, and digitalization of education in Tampere. In Tsukuba, we had the cases of digital transformation for student health management and online voting, with a strong focus on inclusion. And then cases of the supply chain management as an opportunity for businesses and labs in Lund, with the question of globalization. And finally, 2 cases in Grenoble about how to maintain international R&D facilities operation during the COVID crisis, and the VOCOV or OCOV collective initiative, which is another very interesting case about how to integrate various stakeholders in the territory. So studying or exchanging about these various cases, we saw some similarities and differences. So similarities in terms of continuation of production, of continuation of activities, of public services, and of course the remote working and digitalized work, which is overall the same experience, but with differences about the general lockdown or no lockdown or mid lockdown, and each of the ecosystems have been affected differently. Some of them strongly, other not that much, and the solutions that have been found, some of them rather top-down, other rather community-based solutions. Another aspect of this question is the balance between the local and the global. And we see here that the crisis has questioned the way of how the innovation is organized and where it focuses on. So here we see that local needs have been taken more into account, and the question of how to find local providers with borders closed. But in the same time, for others, the question is how to manage the lack of international visitors, students, how to consider international users or markets and partners when the borders are closed. And of course, all the remote work and virtual interaction. And finally, we can also question the localization in itself. So when we hear about relocalization and in the same time we see virtual campuses that is without any physical presence, this is another point to be debated. Another aspect is about the organization inside of each of organization or infrastructure and the partnerships. And we see that the crisis has provoked some reorganization within the various institutions and also in its partnerships with other stakeholders around. It has needed adaptation, reactivity, flexibility, and it will be topics that our panelists will speak about. New focuses, new partners, as I already said. And finally, the constraints and interest of this approach are of three different types. The first one is about time. Of course, this work has been a 3 months work, but the idea will be to work further or to have more time to develop the ideas and the topics. The second is about learning from others' innovation solutions with concrete cases and connections to replicate or common challenges and international cooperation to develop new solutions. And the third is about networking. So the HLF in itself integrates the 4 wings of the quadruple helix. It helps also to develop long-standing relations. It could be completed by some operational outcomes, and we can also speak about that. Thank you very much, and Ed, the floor is yours.
That's very kind. Thank you very much for all the introduction. I'd like to add my own very special welcome to Caroline, Janekrishna, Harri, Yusuke, Mia, and Karin in person. We've got about an hour and 15 minutes, right, to go through the panel. What we're going to do is each of the panelists has some pre-prepared slides. We're about a 5 minutes overview from their perspective and about what they've been experiencing over the last 9 months. 9 months in terms of COVID. It seems like it's been going on forever, right? Just one warning I have to add. That I'm only here because I can speak English. I don't know anything about integrative innovation, so I'm going to be learning at the same time as you all are out there about what this is about and what the impact is. So excuse me when I make mistakes or if I get things wrong, because it's going to be a little bit chaotic and we're going to be having people coming in and out when we get to the panel discussion. So each panelist is going to do 5-minute little overview of what they've been doing, and then we're going to move into the panel discussion where there are a few questions that we have pre-planned. If you're on the chat, please send us questions, no matter what they are, whether they're for a specific panelist or something more general. Please keep the chat questions coming in, because I hope we'll have time at the end to go through some of those questions that we'll see coming in from the audience. So we can perhaps get going with the first panelist, who is Caroline from Grenoble, from somewhere over in the Grenoble area, I think. Are you there?
I am here. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, that's very loud.
All right. So thank you, and hello to everybody, and very happy to start these exchanges with a very short presentation of Grenoble ecosystem before I leave the floor to Karin from the University of Grenoble Alpes, who will get into some more specific subject. Just to give everybody a common view of our ecosystem, even if you probably, for some of you already know it quite a bit. You probably know actually that Grenoble is a fairly unique innovation ecosystem in France, because France is by nature quite a centralized country, and a good deal of its innovation capacities are actually based in Paris. But nevertheless, and despite being only the 11th urban area in France, with about 500,000 people here in Grenoble, Grenoble is actually the second research center in the country, with more than 25,000 researchers and more than 63,000 students. So this is a very specific situation for the country. And this very high concentration of big brains, if I may say so, which represents about 20% of our population, is one of the elements that makes our innovation ecosystem special. Another important factor lies in the resources of our industrial complex. Both historical industries like chemical and energy production or metallurgy, and more recent ones, and especially I'm sure you know Grenoble for its microelectronics, and more also about its medtechs. These elements of this industrial background has been a very thriving situation for our university and research. And they've obviously, in our triple helix usual concept, been feeding one another. And right now, you have to have in mind that Grenoble hosts world-level equipments like the ILL and the ESRF. Its university is now one of the top 100 universities in the Shanghai ranking, which is unique in France outside Paris once more. And it is regularly ranked as one of the most attractive cities for students, not only actually because of its academics, but also because of its quality of life and especially of its natural environment and its mountain. These elements, they all lead us to having a very important factor, which is the diversity of our population. We have more than 8,000 foreign students here in Grenoble, and we have the second largest English-speaking country, English-speaking community, in the country. In addition to which, our ecosystem has become a real heaven for startup, and especially in deep tech. To give you an element of comparison, we have about 20% of the startups in our territory which are on deep tech, whereas in the rest of France, you're around 5%. So this is really like one of the thriving elements. And then just to also give you an element of the dynamics that we have in this innovative ecosystem, we have the chance to have been selected lately as the next to the 2022 European Green City. So that's an opportunity to actually bring our innovation capacities towards also all the questions related to transition. So basically, this fairly small but diverse and worldly, highly educated population, this high concentration of world-level equipment, of strong industries, of dynamic startups, this beautiful, even if somewhat harsh sometimes, and mountain territory, a land of pioneers, this is all that makes our ecosystem special. And a fairly unique ecosystem that obviously reacted in its own very specific way to the challenges of COVID-19. And I will let Karin tell you a little bit more about some of the example of this adaptation.
That's brilliant. Perfect timing. Thank you very much. Karin is actually going to come in later on. We're going to come back to those slides towards the end. Thank you very much. Next up is Janekrishna over in Thailand. Are you there? Janekrishna? Yes, I can see something happening.
Very good.
Brilliant.
Okay. Right. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, the High Level Forum, for organizing this sessions and for inviting me here. Right. I would like to begin my remark by saying that the Thailand is quite fortunate to be able to cope with the COVID-19 crisis quite well. Despite being the first country outside China that having reported case of COVID earlier this year on the January 13th, to date, the number of reported cases in Thailand still under 4,000 cases, with about 60 deaths so far. New cases of 3 to 5 cases are still reported daily. However, these cases are those who come from abroad and are diagnosed during the quarantine period. The World Health Organization has praised Thailand for our comprehensive approach involving the whole of government and whole of society in the effort to contain the virus. The key success factors in our case come from several key elements, including the work of the Village Health Volunteer Network, comprised of over 1 million volunteers, most of whom are women, so thanks to them. Their effectiveness and the trust they earned from their communities helped the Thai Public Health Authority to quickly identify people at risk and to respond quickly to the situation on the ground. In terms of the response to our organizations, can you back to one slide a little bit? Back to the first slide. NSTDA, my organization, is which is one of the larger research organizations in Thailand. We work with many partners to deploy new innovation to support Thailand fight against COVID. For example, we work collaboratively with many agencies in Thailand to pool together data across the agencies to enable monitoring people at risk. We also deploy other instruments like sterilization robots and also transfer the RNA extraction techniques to the companies so that they can produce it to substitute the use of import commercial kits and so on. Next slide, please. In Thailand, we have a network of innovation ecosystem as shown in this slide. At NSTDA, the National Science and Technology Development Agency is responsible for running 4 of them. All ecosystem management teams in Thailand from NSTDA and from other organizations, we work collaboratively and competitively with one another, as well as with our international partners. Also, when possible, we are trying to create platform of collaborations rather than a transaction of collaborations, as well as foster inclusive innovation that harmonize local wisdoms and modern technologies. The next slide is showing an example from EECi, where I'm working on. We are working on the development of the biorefinery ecosystems. The ecosystem comprises of many parties, including large-scale biorefinery pilot plants, the international joint venture companies, the international joint projects, joint labs and center of excellence from local universities, demand-led consortiums from industries, proprietary equipment manufacturers, and so on. The ecosystem will enable players to not only work within their domain and their circles, but also with other players in the ecosystem easier. And collectively, they together will attract more players into the systems. Another example is on the development of smart farming technologies in the durian orchard in the eastern part of Thailand. Durian is said to be the king of fruit in Southeast Asia, and it is very popular imported fruit in China. Each year, we export over 1.6 billion US dollar worth of durians. The problem is durians growing requires lots of water and labors. As both water and labor can be in short supply, creating competitions for resource and therefore tension between the agricultural sectors, the industrial sector, and the service sectors. So we work hand in hand with the orchard owner to integrate their know-how in durian growing with modern technologies. We learn along the way that trust is not only trust, not the technology, is the most important part of the element. And when we work with that would when you earn trust, you definitely will be on path to the success of the deployment of innovations. So together, the researcher and durian growers, they work together and successfully reduce the water consumption by more than 90%, along with significant reduction in labor usage. They are now our spokespersons helping spread the technology to greater adoption in the communities. So that is my first part of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janekrishna. That was good timing. What I'm going to do is, for the speakers coming up, I've forgotten to do it. I'll give you a sign with like a 1 when you've got about a minute left to go. Harri in Finland, are you there? Harri? Oh, there we go. Hang on. We can see him. He's yes. Away. There you go.
Hopefully
all yours for 5 minutes.
Hopefully you're here.
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon from my side. I come from Tampere, Finland. I'm CEO of DIMECC. My name is Harri Kulmala, and we have had the first snow last night here in Tampere, which is a city of about 500,000 people. This is a significant industrial city in Finland, the second largest in the country, and we have about 90,000 students. So universities are important in this city as well. It's very popular city to live in. We have many years won the Finnish vote. Where would you live if you didn't live where you live? If I compare our country in total to the numbers of Thailand, we have not made that well. We have some cases, 24,000 COVID cases, about 400 death cases in the population of a little bit less than 6 million people. But in comparison to European countries, Finland has done rather well when it comes to the safety and health aspects. If you go to the next slide, this represents the setup where I come from. So the Tampere ecosystem is built on significant manufacturing, and this has been traditional manufacturing city of Finland. So this is the context where I'm talking about. And now when the next slide comes, we talk about what happened during the COVID crisis. And this was one of the important points that the mayor of the city of Tampere, he placed a multidisciplinary and cross-organizational COVID recovery and strategy team rather immediately. First for the strategy, and then for the different kinds of operative tasks, different teams, and that worked rather well. I had the honor to serve in the strategy team, and it consists of leaders of the city, leaders of public sector organization, industrial and commercial leaders, and the chairman was one of the deans of the university. And in 4 months, there was an action plan how to come out of the crisis. And this was something else than doing how to survive in the crisis. And this was important. It was integrating different kinds of stakeholders into the design and plan. What after the COVID? Why did we do that? Maybe the city leaders understood that this is not the first crisis ever, and this will definitely not be the last crisis in our history. So this might be a nice way to work. What was the outcome? Of course, there was a strategy, there was idea what to do after the crisis. But what happened during the crisis is that many response times are now shorter. Inclusion of everybody is much easier, and the sense of emergency has been improved significantly among people. How to react to different kinds of things. And of course, even though the safety and healthy figures are rather good in this northern city, the almost total lockdown of the economy, it has caused a significant public debt. And this is the challenge in the future, because the forthcoming generations, they have to pay for the debt. And there is question, should we do this in the future as well, or should we try to keep the economy more open? The lessons learned. First of all, the rigid and inflexible systems, they are definitely not resilient. I will come to this later in the panel discussion. So thanks for the opportunity to start with this kind of words.
Thank you, Harri. The debt is a huge thing. I mean, we've got young kids at home, and they're going to be growing up with 20, 30, 40, 50 years of debt, and perhaps their kids as well. Should I be worried that you've only just had the first snow in Finland? I felt that you should be ready. The snow should have already been there.
That's absolutely true. I think it's a little bit late, but that's another crisis.
Yeah, crisis is on the crisis. We won't go there. We haven't had snow in Grenoble yet. That'll be January, maybe? before we get snow down in the valley. We'll see. Thank you, Harri. Next up is Yusuke from Japan. Are you there? Yes, I can already see you.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. So good evening from my side. It's 8 p.m. So my name is Yusuke Mori from our city of Tsukuba, Ibaraki Prefecture in Japan. So I would like to talk about the current situation during this COVID-19 situation in Tsukuba, and a couple of examples which address to the COVID-19. So the Tsukuba city has continued to develop since Tsukuba Science City construction plan approved by the Japanese cabinet in 1963. Today, the city has a population of 240,000, of which 10,000 are foreign nationals, making it a highly diversified area. Also, the city is home to 150 research institutions in the public and private sectors, and 20,000 people are engaged in a wide range of research and development activities. Regarding the COVID-19 situation in Japan, over 140,000 people have been confirmed to be infected since the outbreak began, with the death toll exceeding 2,000. In Tsukuba, about 200 people have been confirmed since the first outbreak in May. This is a small number compared to the number of infected people in large cities in Japan, but it's expected that the infection has been spreading gradually in the city, and as a local municipality, we are taking measures to prevent the spread of the infections. At the same time, we are making efforts to build our new social system for the era of after and alongside COVID-19. In our top strategy, the city set a vision of a city with science and technology for citizens. We have been working on projects to solve various social problems by implementing technology in society, with collaborating among large companies, social startups, and academia within and outside of Tsukuba City. We think the industry-academia government partnership play an important role, especially amid current COVID-19 crisis. So I'd like to introduce two examples in Tsukuba. At the end of February, the Prime Minister requested municipalities to close schools in order to prevent the spread of infectious diseases amongst children. In Tsukuba City, all elementary and junior high schools were closed from March 6 to 26. For reopening the schools, we collaborated with a startup company in the city called Lever Company to digitalize the children's physical condition management of all the elementary school and junior high schools using a smartphone app, which had previously been done on paper. The app enables parents to record and share their child's physical condition with the school and consult with the doctor as well. And it also allows schools to easily track children's health trends and analyze it by class or by school to help prevent the spread of infectious diseases. We believe this is an excellent example of a strong public-private partnership that has allowed us to respond quickly to our social challenges. Another example of our effort is to make the election online. In the current Japan's election system is an analog, like most of the countries, that voters have to go to the polling place and write candidate's name on a paper. Although voter turnout in Japan's election was originally on the decline, there are concerns that the spread of COVID-19 could further reduce the rate. In fact, the turnout for the mayoral election in another city in April decreased by 25 points, which is impressive. Tsukuba has been working with startups to create online voting system for 3 years. In addition to the convenience of electronic voting, however, personal identification and information security are important. So we combined individual number card in Japan as my number card, and biometric authentication technology that resulted in realization of smartphone voting. And we use this voting system when we chose projects to be subsidized, but we hope we'll be able to use it for election in the near future. The lesson we have learned from this crisis is the importance of strong partnership amongst industry, academia, and government. I was reminded of the importance of this, especially in creating a new society that utilizes science and technology, as I explained in the case of school healthcare and online voting. We are very happy to collaborate with startups from member cities as well. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. We were worried we'd lost Lund, but I think, Mia, you are now there. I was told to wait for a couple of seconds, and if you don't appear, there you are. All yours, Mia, 5 minutes, go, before we lose you again.
Hi, everyone. This year certainly has put some gray hairs on us all. So a short review of the Swedish innovation ecosystem, or Sweden situation of COVID. As you very well might know, the Swedish government let us in a voluntary lockdown, which meant that about 80 to 90% were actually working from home on a voluntary basis, but business were open, and business as usual was going on, but more digital. And the current situation with COVID-19 is that we have about 240,000 confirmed cases and about 6,600 deaths, sorry to say. And right now, as we speak, 230 are in intensive care. So we're still very, very cautious. Going to our Lund innovation ecosystem, which you might also know that we are a small city of 120,000 people, but we have about 40,000 students and about 8,000 scientists. And this ecosystem is represented by several science parks, the Lund city and the university. And we're about 600 companies in the area. And what we felt was the largest impact is for every successful Swedish company needs to be international. We're a small country, and when you can't be international, suddenly all the global activities needed to be very local. So we quickly turned to each other and created a more collaborative innovation support. And when, for example, US labs couldn't be used on a daily basis, there were searches on Swedish contributions or labs that could be used, and you need to re-strategize your logistic planning when you couldn't have your supply chain or component sources from international markets. How to solve that. So we needed to come together to really help each other solve this situation. We can go to the next slide. We also, of course, turned from having large international meetings and exhibitions to more local, smaller, more directed digital trainings. Actually, we quickly did that to support the companies in Sweden and in Lund to continue their business, to continue their innovations, and continue their international relationships and their growth. And that actually happened. So Lund is one of the cities where you can see the innovation companies are still growing. However, the restaurants and hotels, of course, are super suffering. The challenges when you have international connections, of course, is how to meet when you can't travel. Well, everything turned digital, and we also made digital pitches to be used both to market and investors. And of course, those who were able to build up their stock with components and production, they were or with components, they could still be in production and business as usual. So lots of things happen, but it happens in new and different ways, and that's what I want to come to. That we call it integrative innovation here, but we have for years been calling it for open innovation, when you bring in the sources you need wherever they are in the world to help you solve the problems. And going forward in this discussion, I look forward to discuss how we as a global ecosystem could be in closer calls between each other when the crisis hit us, and work on some global innovation ecosystem support. I'll stop there. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I was just wondering if I can lob questions in now, and I can because I'm the moderator, so that's okay. When the US labs, you say they're switching to Swedish labs, do you think that's going to be more permanent, or is that a temporary thing?
I think it was a crisis action, an agile action, but I think what's going to stick with us is the agile leadership and decision-making processes. That means that you can always switch from US to Swedish and vice versa. It will be more moving target, I think, in the future, if you're asking me about that.
Yeah, sure. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Last but by no means least, we're switching back to Grenoble with Karine, who's going to carry on with the Grenoble presentation.
Yeah.
Yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so just wait for the slides. No, it's not this one. This is not this one. The first example, please. It's the second slide. Yes, thank you very much. Here we are. So I will talk about two examples to illustrate how Grenoble ecosystem was able to fight against COVID. The first one is beginning right at the beginning of our first lockdown. That was mid-March. Everything stopped in France, as you know. And we had at this time like a mask gate, I would say, since the French government realized that mask was one of the way to fight against COVID, but we didn't have mask. So we had to find very rapidly some solution to protect population and so on. So the first initiative called VOC-COV was at the right beginning a very very collective initiative where a group of citizens rapidly joined by big companies like Michelin and labs like CEA decided to collectively work on a project of mask. So the first project is a face mask that has been developed very rapidly in a very short time with a very innovative methods to protect mainly people in the whole health system in France. Rapidly, they found another company, which is a small size company based in Lyon, which is called Ouvry. And Ouvry was able to industrialize and very rapidly to deliver the mask, which are a sustainable way, because it's not throw-away mask, but it's a permanent mask that you can reuse. So it's a sustainable solution. Here, of course, many things had to be unlocked very rapidly, especially administrative norms. So after a few weeks, the mask was unable to be commercialized in France, and the company began the production. So it's a citizen initiative supported by companies, and then supported by, of course, the government to really find solution to have an access to mask. Second example, please, second slide. Thank you. Second example is linked to our specificities in Grenoble in terms of big instruments of research. So the case of ESRF and ELL, who of course have to stop all their activities very fast. ESRF is welcoming each year more than 10,000 researchers that come to do their experimentation on the synchrotron. Of course, this was not possible anymore because no travel, so no researchers. And of course, even if the ESRF had to close a few weeks, but relatively shortly, they had to reinvent a new way to work with these researchers. So they completely transformed the activity with a new organization using video, using electronic means to let the possibility to the researchers to send all their different pieces needed for the experimentation to Grenoble. And then the experimentation was done by researchers from the ESRF and ELL. So it was a very rapid adaptation, short-term adaptation, but which is interesting here is that this adaptation probably has highly consequences for the long term, because a new way to give access to the big equipment was invented, and of course we can imagine from that a new opportunities to work with industries, to work with a new offer made of services that could be proposed to a larger basis of users. So it's a brand new organization which is still going. Is that okay?
That was sorry. That was a yes. You're asking me. That was absolutely perfect. Which I have to say, that remote access, because I'm from the ESRF, right, is something that is happening worldwide, right, with the light sources, the neutron sources across Europe, and that digitalization, remote access process to those research infrastructures, something certainly going to carry on. It's becoming a priority for Europe. Structural biology and astronomy and others, of course, have been doing it for a while yet, but now we're learning from that. And as you said, that sped up innovation and a drive for short-term adaptation that also has long-term perspective is incredibly important.
Yeah, you're completely right. It's also the same for all labs of the university and all the faculties in the university who had to adapt very fast. And now we have also had to reinvent new ways to teach and new ways to do our experimentation in the labs.
Sometimes I'm pleased I went to university a long time ago and had the full experience. The kids these days, it's a different thing. Thank you very much. What we're going to do now, and it might get a little bit entropic and complicated, is we're going to move to the more sort of conversational round table. What we're going to do, because for technical reasons, we can only have, I think it's 4 people that are visible at any one point. So we've got 5 questions written down here at the moment, and we're going to invite in and chuck out different panelists at different times. And I think Gabriel, wherever he is conducting all of this as we go through the questions. So for the first question, we're inviting Mia, Harri and Janekrishna. In some ways, Karin, you're here all the time, right? You just jump in and say what you want to, right? Who are joining us on the screen for the first question. I think, are you there? Yes, you're coming in. So we're going into the round table. So the first question coming up is, to what extent does the current crisis require rethinking of the local organization of innovation? Is there more integrative production? Is there more research? Do you involve the local stakeholders, the local population? Does someone want to jump in to answer that one from Mia, Harri, Janekrishna?
Okay, I'll go first then.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. I think not rethinking, but speeding up the process of embracing open innovations. We really need to speed up the process in making collaboration and cooperations between organizations as a norm, not an exception. And only through collaboration and cooperation that we can be in a better positions to respond to the fast-changing world and cope with bursts of urgent needs that come from nowhere, like this COVID pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Harri, Mia?
Yes, I would like to. Of course, I agree. I think not only speeding up innovations, but reacting more spontaneous, being more agile. I think that is what we need for sticking to success in the future. And but when we are in a global crisis like this, you can really feel that you're only as strong as your network is. You need to pull the right people in to solve whatever you have in front of you.
How do you cope with that networking? Networking, we try to network with industry to make them come and use the ESRF, and it's a nightmare. Finding the right person in the right organization to talk to is incredibly difficult. How are you handling that over where you are, Mia, to sort of extend your network?
Well, this is perhaps where I'm the expert. I'm not the engineer expert. I'm the network expert. But it's of course a skill, but you also need to make notes on when is this a person or organization useful for me, and in what situation, and have a sort of a structure for that. But I do really love LinkedIn. You could actually search on whatever you need, and you could find people that are having this in their profile. So it's not a problem finding people, but you need to also continue fruitful relationship to have those network with you when the crisis hit you.
Yeah, exactly. Maintaining that and valorizing it is extremely difficult. Harri, over in Finland.
Yeah, if I take the manufacturing and production perspective, in the first phase of COVID, there was a worry that we can't survive with the value chains and supply chain. But it launched a discussion whether the global production system should be more localized, more built on integrates, where the whole supply chain is managed from one single point. Well, this naturally didn't happen. Even thought we are very, very export oriented ecosystem and very much rely on external competencies and capabilities. We import a lot, we export a lot. But then we started to establish as a public-private partnership a 3D printing ecosystem. That may have happened anyway, but I feel that the COVID crisis, it boosted the establishment of such an ecosystem that was calling both public and private investment. And that was because 3D printing might be a mechanism to localize some things in supply chains. Okay, then if I take the economist perspective, there was the thinking of how long should we forecast? And this was noticed that let's not forecast too long. And if we forecast, let's not forecast in too detail. And this challenges especially the public sector, because there is a tradition in public sector to plan for long lead times and for long periods, while in COVID crisis case, planning for long, it sounded like nonsense.
One thing in your presentation, Harri, just to come back with, and it's sort of relevant maybe to the 3D printing example, but also to this local organization. And one thing you mentioned is that there's a risk, there's a polarization between insider groups and minority, where that polarization may be potentially increased. Can you just dig into that a little bit more? Because I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, it's because more and more of the communications are in digital form. And as we have seen from social media, it might be that people select with whom they interact. And the interaction may be in such and so-called bubbles where people don't see the reality in the streets and the reality of the other side. And the opinions may polarize because of not meeting the so-called wrong people. And I feel very, very dangerous situation when we don't meet the so-called wrong people. That's very nice in the physical world, that we meet the ones who we want to meet and the ones who we didn't want to meet.
Yeah, that risk of being fed sort of what you want to hear all the time. You choose the news pieces that you want to see that glorify certain things. Just coming back to Janekrishna, if I can, in your presentation as well, in the context of the local organization, you mentioned trust in the being a main barrier in trying to put innovations out into the real world. Can you dig into that one a little bit as well, please?
Okay, I couldn't hear you well, but I guess you asked about trust, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. According to the orchard owners, he says it's very often that researchers come from air conditioning room, come to talk about innovations in their farms, and soon after they just go away, and the farmer is left with all the innovation that are not functioning. So I mean, and that's often the case because in orchard you know that heat and sun and other things happen. So only the farmers are learning not to trust innovators until they prove themselves otherwise.
Okay, so it's like the ivory in Europe, or I guess in the UK, it's the ivory towers coming out to meet the farmers, and somehow
Exactly.
that trust has got to be built, that you can do things. So I'm aware that we're ticking through time, and I think we've got to sort of hit the 5 questions if we can. Unless nope, it's okay. We're going to try question 2. So we're going to invite Caroline, Janekrishna, and Harri, and we're kicking out. Hang on. Janekrishna, you're being kicked out temporarily. And Yusuke, can you come in, please? If you're there. And even if you're not, we're going to carry on anyway. So we've got Caroline, Janekrishna, Harri, and Yusuke somewhere, apparently. And Janekrishna's out temporarily. So the second question is going to be about sovereignty. I can't say that. Autonomy, relocation of industry. And in terms of that, what kind of new strategic partnerships are possible for our ecosystems, taking into account those lessons that we've been learning from the COVID-19 crisis? Is there somebody who wants to jump in on that straight away? Because otherwise I'll nominate one of you. So if you do. Yes, please go.
I can start if you want. Just actually, maybe as a warning to share amongst ourselves in terms of the dangers, actually, that the lessons learned that we have from this crisis is bringing to us. We were talking just in the previous question about how to rethink the local organization of innovation, because we've heard a lot talking about relocation of activities. And one of the threats that I can see in terms of the development of partnership between innovative systems around the world right now is a certain tendency to talk a lot, especially among public officials, about relocation and thinking more local and developing less partnership at an international level. And obviously this is a potential threat because we need the diversity of the exchanges between our ecosystems. And it is important to have strong local innovative ecosystems and develop more integrated approaches with all the partners locally to be more reactive facing crises like we've seen, to be in the right timing with the right agility, as was explained before, and to have the diversity of resources locally to face this. But it shouldn't become a constraint towards the development also of partnership worldwide, because we also need these diversities of approaches that we don't always have locally. So that's, I would start by that. The theme of sovereignty, which is, as you say, difficult to say, is something that we have to be careful with, and we have to maintain relationship outside the countries and outside the local ecosystem to maintain this diversity of actors and points of view and compare of innovative approaches.
Absolutely. The sovereignty question, obviously, as being a British person at the moment, it's very forefront in my mind with the 31st December rapidly arriving, and that feedback and the point about the diversity and inclusivity is incredibly important. Karen.
No, I wanted to answer to Caroline, because sovereignty is it's a hard word, but also we saw during this crisis at which point sovereignty was important. You remember the difficulty we had. I talked about the masks, but I could also have talked about the regions that we needed to produce all the medicine that we needed to be able to for healthcare. So we discovered that supply chains were and logistics were keys in this sovereignty. Another word which is important is resilience, because resilience that means that you are able to build something to go over the crisis, which is interesting in the different things that you talk about in your different ecosystem, is to consider at which point you jump from a crisis management to a more stable management. And maybe this is very interesting, because this is something I really was able to observe in the university, where right at the beginning, when we had to close the whole universities and labs in 1 week, it was less than 1 week. It was completely crazy, and we were really at the first stages in a crisis management. But now we are not in a crisis management anymore. So we are just in another way of working with our students, with our researchers. But this is something I would like to mention.
Yeah, so how do you, and for the others out there, where you're often engaged with universities, how do you see that student experience evolving in the future? Again, with the sovereignty and the kind of more working together as universities with the student teaching, or the mobility of students, or do the students need to be mobile anymore, or universities just become virtual?
Yes, because there is another thing we didn't talk about, is the social links. Yeah. And we completely lost social links. I mean, we are talking with each other, so we think we have a social link, but we lose all the informal. We lose all the everything that happens in human relationships. So, and this is exactly the same for the students. Yeah. So at this time, imagine the students, they are just alone in a room, or maybe by their parents, but anyway, they are alone. So, and they are 20. So it's a difficult situation, and mobility. Of course, we are thinking about hybrid mobility, and this is a huge word now, and everybody is talking about that. But anyway, we have to rethink mobility in more hybrid way, but it doesn't mean that we will suppress mobility, because we need to discover other ecosystem, other environments, other cultures. It's very important to build ourselves.
No, that's absolutely true. Does anybody else want to come in from elsewhere? Yusuke? Or put your hands up in, yeah, go for it, please.
Okay, so in terms of sovereignty or autonomy, so we Japanese government didn't force people to be forced to close, for example, the universities as well as stores, but as you see, the number of confirmed cases is relatively low comparing to the population in Japan. I think it is because there is so-called peer pressure amongst Japanese citizens that people are, how can I say, it's not forced, but tend to think others first. So that resulted in this low case number. So back into what I explained in my earlier presentation. So I introduced the example of the collaboration between the Tsukuba startup and Tsukuba city for the digitalizing the school students' healthcare management. So that project, we didn't ask the startup to cooperate, to the city. Even we subsidized some amount of money in the past to the company, but they really wanted to contribute to the citizens naturally. So that motivation, their motivation helped us to create the nice system that the parents didn't have to go through the paperwork every day, every morning, to check their child's health, the health condition, and report them to the school. And also the teachers have to collect them in physical manner that had a risk to contaminate the viruses among schools. But this kind of, I would say, the free collaboration between the public and private the sectors would be the nice example of not the sovereignty, but not the free total autonomy, but the good balance between those two, the poles.
Exactly. I liked your point where you were going towards the teachers having confidence that the kids that are in front of them are not infectious and are sort of disease-free. And I've been delighted in France, in our village, to see the teachers sticking to the classes, and they've got 30 kids in front of them, and who knows what's going on in terms of spreading, but the teachers have been there and on the front line working with the kids. We've got 15 minutes or so left, so we should just try to move to question 3. So Caroline, Harri, and Yusuke, please stay connected. Caroline, well, it doesn't matter, right? Because Karine is here, right? So, to hell with it. Let's just try and see what happens. So everybody just stay there, because Karine is here anyway. The next question is, what kind of new international partnerships do you see coming from the crisis and contributing to what you feel is integrative innovation? Does somebody want to jump in? Harri?
Well, yes. It's quite an interesting discussion related to the role of CTOs, especially in the companies, but maybe also in other organizations. There has been a lot of criticism that CTOs do not lead the digitalization of companies at the moment, but it's COVID that leads digitalization. It might be so, but the question is, how do we lead? Because now it's much easier than ever before to integrate anybody. I really mean anybody to our discussions, negotiations, meetings, and whatever. We can take the input of anybody because it's so easy, so cheap, and so digital, the connection, that we can connect anybody from anywhere. And this means that the whole globe basically can work together simultaneously. The question is, how do we do that while we have lost the opportunity to meet physically and to physically benchmark the other cultures and to make friends with the other cultures? So do we have the courage? Do we have the strength to include everybody while it's technically possible, but while we don't understand the context of the others as well as in the times when we had parties, negotiations, events, and whatever, and we discussed, had coffee or beer or wine or whatever. So the question is about leadership, I think, and the ones who can lead the digital transfer so that they really integrate people globally, they will win the different kinds of partnerships. And the ones who stick with the idea that I only can cope with the persons who I do from previous life, it will be rather limited if the COVID continues.
The impact of the beer in the bar is something that we miss enormously, right? Because that's really where the new ideas are bred. Anyway, Caroline, Grenoble is already very, very international. I was remarking that earlier on with the international facilities. How do you see those international partnerships developing in the future, perhaps as a result of COVID or other factors?
Well, actually, yeah, just to build upon what Harri was saying, as he said, it's easier and easier technically to just exchange with people all around the world, and it's cheap. But on the other hand, we do need these human contacts, and I think one of the value actually of the innovative ecosystem here in Grenoble is this presence of people from all around the world who work together in different institutions or different companies, but also meet up at the bar at the end of the day. And there are so many of them that actually this melting pot is an ongoing situation that builds up innovation. So I don't think we can escape that. And we were talking about trust before, and to actually build partnerships and share ideas, you need this trust in the other people, and we will always need this interpersonal relationship. And I don't think it will disappear anyway because of the situation we have now, which is a transitory situation. So I would tend to say that we need to build upon the two tools, meaning we can open new partnerships, and we've seen that actually under the constraint of the crisis and the need to be reactive and find vaccines very quickly. For example, you have a giant pharmaceutical company in the US working with a much smaller SME in Germany to build up the development of the vaccine. And that can be built up upon the first contacts that go through all the digital equipment that we have. And so that's why we need to keep events such as the one we are in today going on and develop them, and keep all the exchanges all along the time in a regular manner through these digital means. But we also do need to have the physical presence and to go get this beer and talk about the projects that we have all together on a face-to-face basis.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Somebody's waving 10 minutes at me from somewhere in the auditorium. For the giant people that are listening, I am personally looking forward to the brasserie arriving in the Y spot as soon as possible, please. So we have a decent bar somewhere on the Presqu'île, because it's relatively urgent. We've just moved to question 4. Harri, Yusuke, and Karine, it says here, are connected. Mia, if you can connect, please, and Karine, you can't disconnect, you're there. It doesn't matter, right? Harri should, this is getting complicated. Janekrishna enters and Harri leaves. So if you're all sorting that out while I'm not watching you, we'll just go with the question. What international joint initiatives overcome the impact on the youth mobility and socialization? So going back to the university angle a little bit on this, how do you see that how are you going to overcome that? Maybe we'll go to you while they're sorting themselves out over there. Karen.
Yes, from the university part, so this initiative are translated to not new partnerships, but we are strengthening our partnerships. So as Karine says, we use the digital means to connect with our different partners, but which is important is that we were able to really develop common projects. Building on how we dealt with the crisis, of course, but not only. So this was a way to rethink the way we were conducting our partnerships. This is very important, I think. And now we are strengthening the partnerships, finding other universities with which we really have. So trust is, of course, very important. We said that already, but also where we share some values. So this is very important. More than trust, sharing values, sharing a project, sharing a strategy. Together, this is the way we are rethinking our strategic partnerships at the university scale.
That's brilliant. Mia, because you haven't said anything yet, you mentioned in your presentation that over in Lund you've got 40,000 students and 8,000 scientists. So you have an issue with mobility and the impact that's having at the moment. What's going on over there?
Well, we do have a problem. Of course, lots of the students are, as been said here before, alone in the room. And what we try to do is we have some still open spaces at the science park where they could meet in a safe distance and study. I love the idea of having a multinational platform for a project working together. So you could be a student listed in the Lund University, but sitting in Grenoble and connecting to Grenoble students. Why not? I think that's an excellent idea. And I think we could also see it as an opportunity if digitalization takes down the borders. What are the limits of university from Grenoble or Lund or Tsukuba? They could actually be everywhere, and you could pick up and recruit students even if they are in Nigeria or wherever. So I think we need to see this not only as a threat but as a great opportunity to connect with the team that we have here in the HLF and create new ways of feeling international.
Thank you.
There is just a small problem with the time, the time schedules and the way to organize the lectures and to organize if you want to be in real time. Of course, now it's noon, so we can talk with our Japanese friends and as well as our US friends, but it will be a little bit late for the Japanese in a few moments. And of course, this is a difficulty. If you want to organize things in real time. And if you're not organizing things in real time, then you will use video, and it's different. So it's you're right. It's a real possibility to connect the students, and this crisis has shown that many things were possible, but the learning times is a difficulty.
I think it's the way to prepare the students for the work, because at work we have also different times, so we can still make business across global distance. So I think we just have to be open for the new ways of doing things, and of course for the government to consider how to support the universities if they are having students all over the world.
We were discussing this a little bit with Gabriel in kind of the green room, if you like, before coming out here, and we came up with something that was called transcultural cloud teaching, where the students sort of waft around in a cloud and learn from whichever university they wish to do so. We need to move on, but is there any final comments on this question from the panelists that I can see? Put your hand up, or we move on. We move on. So the last question, because we have to do it, and then we might do a couple of questions from the chat if we've got time. But just quickly, the last question is, what are some ways in which an association such as the High Level Forum, surprisingly enough, can help achieve more integrative innovation for your region through increased international networking? Does anybody want to take up how the HLF can help you out in the future in terms of that sort of international networking and visibility? We can do this one relatively fast.
Right, Janekrishna here.
Yep, go. Please.
Yep,
yeah,
I think as HLF is, we are a network of many innovation ecosystems. So when we try to reach out for international partner, HLF can act as the intermediary agents to help us reach to the right person or right ecosystem.
Strongly agree. Anyone else for HLF? Yeah, please.
Yeah, as there is social changes in each country, I expect it to occur more rapidly than ever before. The opportunities like HLF to exchange information and ideas and experiences will become more important. And the HLF has been emphasizing face-to-face interaction. And even though various digitalization advances, I don't think that the importance of face-to-face interaction will ever be completely substituted by online, or it may become more valuable, I think. So hope I will see you guys in Grenoble next year.
So is it in Grenoble next year? I don't know. Yes, I don't know, right? They're nodding yes over there. Yes, it's in Grenoble next year. Okay, right, it's in Grenoble next year with a bit of luck. Is there anybody else with a point on that last? We're going to throw a couple of more questions at you, I think, if we've got time. Hands in the air for the ones I can see. No? Do we have somebody who's going to chuck me questions from the chat, if there are any? And if there aren't, I'm going to chuck one out anyway. Can I? Have I got time? Oh, great. I can't see. I can't read that. I have a question for over in the panelists from Tsukuba. It also has an innovation hub like EECi in Tsukuba. The Super Global Innovation is organization. Where's the question? Oh, there. Okay, Tsukuba. Over in Tsukuba, do you want to try and answer that question, please? It's quite long. Who plays such a role in the EECi? And this is a very specific question. What specific role do they play with COVID-19?
I guess that the question is addressed to me.
Yep.
So in a normal circumstances, the ecosystem managers would take that role. But in the case of a pandemic like COVID, with this kind of scales, for example, the NSTDA itself, the National Science and Technology Development Agency, who operate for innovation ecosystem in Thailand, take the role for us. So we do things together as an organization. And of course, at the country level, NSTDA also connect to other agencies at the country level.
Okay.
So that's my response.
You're saying stop. All right. So okay, we're being told to stop. Okay, so we're going to. It's clear at least, right?
Oh.
No, but no. Keep going. All right, give us another question, please, Gabriel. To Harri or Yusuke, how to integrate? It's from Leah. That's cheating, right, Leah? How to integrate business interests in PPP and public innovation, so public-private partnerships. Harri or Yusuke? Do you want
okay, so I go first. I think there are 3 points. So first one is first in Japan or first in the world. So that is the first one. And the second one is social good. And the third one is the promise for procurement in the future.
Yeah.
So I think I don't have enough time to explain each point I mentioned, but those 3 are key points, and I hope we have enough time to discuss further. First in Japan and social good, and promise for procurement from the government side in the future.
Okay, thank you. Harri, anything on that one?
I think I continue on the same line, but we have felt here in the north that it's good to put private sector to pay for some actions, let them invest, and then invest the public funding on top of private interest, and also to regulate and set the targets so that whatever the private sector does, it goes for the benefits of the society, but private sector can lead the things so that they will take care, that they benefit anyway.
Exactly. Can I do a question? I'd like to do a question. One of the questions that was in your presentation, Karin, was the problem of value sharing in integrative innovation, and how do you split out the IPR? How do you share it? Are there licensing issues? What can you give us a quick comment, and then we'll ask maybe Mia or Caroline to jump in as well.
Well, so it's not something completely new, because this question is known for a long time with open innovation, and now we have enough experience regarding open innovation to know how to deal with IP and how to share it. So I think that of course, beyond the legal aspect of IP, we can also use integrative innovation to find new ways to share IP. But again, some things can be done easily with our partners, and we see that the connection that we have today with all these participants from different countries shows that we can consider discussing together a topic like that. And of course, I think we have to imagine, to rethink the way to share IP.
Okay. I think unless I can see the clock ticking over to 1:30, which means we're theoretically done. Are there any more final comments from the panel, wherever you are in the world and whatever time it may be? I think Yeah, go on.
As a representative of Grenoble metropolitan area, I just have to say that we will be very happy to have everybody here next year, actually, to have this beer we were talking about and have this interpersonal connection that we all need to build upon all these digital exchanges that are very fruitful. So thank you all. And see you then.
That's brilliant. By then, the bar and the Y spot should probably be there, right? I think, and that will be good news. As I'm the moderator, I get to have the last word. I can just 2 seconds, right? I'm not going to do a roundup, right? I'm just going to say that being British and with what's going on, the fact that all of you have emphasized the diversity and being inclusive to create a dynamic and innovative transcultural environment is incredibly welcome. I think it's obvious, but in some parts of the world, perhaps it's not so clear. But I very much hope that the UK will still be reaching out to universities in France and elsewhere, and those links are maintained. And just one thing from Janekrishna, who said earlier on, in some ways, like a definition of integrative innovation, and then I'm going to stop, where he said that this type of innovation was very much harmonizing the local wisdom with the advanced technologies that are becoming available. And I felt for me that was a very elegant definition of what I felt integrative innovation may be. And with that, I think we stop and say thank you to the panel, wherever you are in the world, and for staying up late or getting up early. And in Grenoble, we're going to go for lunch right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all to the panelists for this great session. Thanks to Gabriel and to Ed. Great moderation. We're now going to leave the panel, but we're actually going to visit these innovation ecosystems in a video slot for about half an hour called the Ecosystem Gallery. See you in half an hour.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Bonjour à Grenoble. It is a pleasure for me to present our innovation ecosystem. My name is Carola Geis-Nethöfel and I'm the director of the Ruhr Regional Association. We are the regional hub for 53 cities of Ruhr Metropolis with over 5 million people. For 100 years we are improving the quality of life, maintaining and preserving green open spaces. Regional planning and the sponsoring of significant infrastructure projects promoting innovation and changes are also important goals. Like many regions, we have faced structural change. Now we are again changing from a fossil to a future sustainable hydrogen economy. Therefore, we have chosen our hydrogen cluster as a topic for this conference. We are very happy to share experiences with all of you. I am looking forward to our discussions. Thank you very much.
When the thing that has long been the key to a region's future is suddenly resigned to the past, then we will simply reinvent the future, a sustainable and green future. Instead of coal, hydrogen is now the name of the game. In the Ruhr region, we worked in recent years to create the required parameters for one of the world's largest regional centers of excellence for hydrogen power. This will give us enormous locational advantages both today and in the future. Here in the heart of Europe, one of the world's oldest industrial regions is at the forefront of innovation. And in the near future, a unique project will supply the region with green energy via a 130-kilometer H2 pipeline from the wind farms in Emsland all the way to Gelsenkirchen. The Ruhr region is both the largest producer and the largest consumer of hydrogen in Europe. We have many universities, many startups, and many companies here that are working on green hydrogen and that can continue to advance the topic throughout the world. The future will be made of hydrogen. Even in industries with a long tradition like steel, H2 opens up enormous potential for reducing CO2 emissions. The Ruhr region is a business hub with a unique ecosystem. The basic building blocks for developing an integrated hydrogen industry are already in place here. Efficient infrastructure, highly qualified professionals, and innovative industrial enterprises. We can build on this going forward and make an important contribution to this new industrial revolution. Hydrogen is already replacing fossil raw materials in chemical production. In the future, the hydrogen itself will even be green. Numerous research centers and universities are fostering and advancing hydrogen technologies. The Ruhr region has high traffic density in general, whether on the roads, rails, or waterways. So there is a long tradition of research into innovative mobility solutions. A veritable hydrogen boom is underway here, even reaching to small and medium-sized enterprises as well. We have been actively shaping the energy transformation for years. Hydrogen is a key component of the future energy spectrum. Our electrolyzers and fuel cells are already being used in a wide range of customer applications today. There are two major tasks. Hydrogen must become green, that is, generated without using fossil energy, and we need to produce green hydrogen at prices that make it competitive. In the Ruhr region, we are ready to do just that. The Ruhr region is rapidly becoming a both innovative and climate-friendly energy region. That's because people in the Ruhr metropolitan area truly understand how to take advantage of the enormous potential the hydrogen economy offers. I am convinced that the Ruhr region will be among the world's leaders in this technology. This is a region that knows how to use the future of energy to shape its own future as well. If the future is made of hydrogen, then the future will be made here.
The Ruhr area is the industrial heart of North Rhine-Westphalia. Of course, we know that our history, our roots, belong to steel and coal production. And also our future will be an industrial future. But therefore, we got to reduce CO2 and therefore we need hydrogen. Hydrogen in the steel production. Duisburg is still the capital in Europe for steel production, and therefore the hydrogen infrastructure, the hydrogen production and the distribution is very important for us. Together with our partners in the industry, in science, and in the local departments, we want to build up a hydrogen strategy for 2030. And we are very glad to participate on this Congress in Grenoble. Thank you.
In our increasingly connected world, a handful of great cities stand out from the rest. Beacons of commerce and prestige. Cities with strong, diverse economies, extraordinary talent, and excellent quality of life. All the hallmarks of great global cities. Since our founding 180 years ago, Houston has been a city of opportunity. A city where no idea was too big, no problem too great. Over the years, we've grown our economy to rank 15th globally. And we produce the second highest GDP per worker of any metro in the world. We're an internationally connected city with the most diverse population in the United States. We're a city that leads across major industries, including energy, life sciences, manufacturing, logistics, and aerospace. Industries where innovations change the world. Houston is a global knowledge capital and a hub where great ideas come to scale. Much of this cutting-edge work is happening in the heart of the city's powerful economic and social center, Houston's Innovation Corridor. Combine all this with the fact that Houston has a healthy funding scene, with more than $62 billion in private equity and venture capital assets. And it's easy to see why Business Facilities magazine ranked Houston as a top ecosystem in the U.S. for startup companies. By every measure, Houston is a global tech and innovation hub where dreamers and doers collaborate to create technology that shapes the world.
You see it everywhere. This intensity, this creativity, this ability to work together is unique. Corporations, institutions come here in Quebec to see what is going on and how can we better learn to be more creative, more inventive, and more collaborative in creating new technologies.
There's wonderful opportunity here because it is a culture that is very, very much assimilated to that type of innovation, and there's been remarkable companies that have already been developed here.
If we talk about the future of mobility, transportation, it's a great place to be. Here, moving on, it's really about the future of mobility, the future of how we move around.
For us, the future is most definitely electric. 20 years from now, we're hoping that a very big proportion of the transportations will be electrified. And in order to attain this objective, we are looking for international partnerships to achieve that objective.
We're very lucky because we have a lot of expertise. The Quebec government has pushed a lot in the last year to have the best resource, and there's a lot of training. We have a very good engineer as well as technician and assembler.
All of that is happening in Montreal right now. And we're there to support them. We're there to invest in those companies so they will come here. And we are very active in the world, making sure that people are all aware of those advantages for them to come here.
For any computer, cell phone, or electric vehicle inside the body, at least one element was invented in our Center of Excellence.
So Montreal has all the assets to rapidly test mobility concepts. Let us start with a testing of safety features roughly 25 kilometers away from Montreal. And then you can bring the technology downtown. So this is quite a unique opportunity we have here to offer to those stakeholders willing to test things namely to have access to this pool of support within a very short range.
So the ecosystem is already there. You add on top of that, Quebec City itself is known as a photonics and optics hub. So it makes us a very good environment for technology companies who want to establish themselves here.
NRC has a network of facilities across the country, enabling the partners to access to unique state-of-the-art equipment for the development of new technologies for the advanced mobility.
You have also a wonderful energy mix here, which allows us to develop sustainable mobility. Plus, you have an artificial intelligence cluster, which is also very attractive for big corporations. Last but not least, a wonderful academic ecosystem.
And we're seeing big players from Asia, from Europe, from North America, starting to knock on our doors, and we can demonstrate to them the ecosystem we have in artificial intelligence, and it's a great one. And we can show them as well the ecosystem we have in mobility. And when you combine both of those together, it's just wonderful.
International companies should definitely come to Montreal or come to Quebec to position themselves among the best.
We have the know-how, we have the resources, it's all here, capital's available, and it's been growing at lightning speed. So all the components that you would need in order to provide these kind of services are there.
Tsukuba Science City is so interesting because there are so many different parts and aspects of science here.
They all had a nice theme of kind of exploring science and teaching science to people like me that don't necessarily understand it.
Everything today we saw was really interesting.
They had the beautiful 3D map that you could walk through. It was very impressive.
You have the space part, you have the Earth part. You have the ability to see the different approaches to science, which is really interesting.
The bus was also very convenient for getting around to all the different museums and locations. The city of Tsukuba is a very unique city in Japan. We've been all over to different cities, but this is probably the most unique city because of its connection to science and all the different research facilities here. It makes you feel kind of involved in the work here and makes you feel part of it.
I would definitely recommend coming to visit Tsukuba Science City because you can see all the different approaches to science.
I'm very much enjoying my time here. I'd like to come again and see more.
The Eastern Economic Corridor, or EECi, is a regional development project covering the area of 3 major provinces in the eastern part of Thailand: Chonburi, Rayong, and Chachoengsao, with more than 1.5 billion baht investment in infrastructure from private and public sectors. This strategic location will uplift the industry, enhance competitiveness, and ultimately bring prosperity to the national economy. Eastern Economic Corridor of Innovation, or EECi, provides key mechanisms for technology and innovation development in order to nurture advanced technology-based industries, with 6 focus industries. EECi is located at Wangjan Valley, Rayong Province. This innovation hub is equipped with not only translational research infrastructure, but also human resources, supporting mechanisms to encourage research and development through these innovation platforms. EECi Biopolis, EECi Auripolis, EECi Space Innopolis, Food Innopolis. The ultimate goal of EECi is to become an integrated platform for universities, public and private sectors, local communities, as well as local and international research institutes, which encourages technology development and innovation with work-life balance environment. Companies can rent a long-term leasehold land or an office in the building for research and development, and can also exploit the benefits of maximum BOI privileges. Regulatory sandbox as a testing ground for their innovation and resources of talented workforce. EECi. Integrate technologies. Accelerate innovation.
In the era of Internet of Everything and artificial intelligence, people are seeking ways to create a smarter life, age healthily, and make good use of limited energy and resources. To address these issues, EECi is outlining a bright future for 2030, with a focus on three major application domains: smart living, quality health, and sustainable environment. In smart living, we integrate software and hardware integration to provide innovative technologies and services to satisfy individual and business needs. When developing personalized devices and services, smart platforms are built to achieve mutual communication among different terminal devices. In developing autonomous mobility systems, we adopt technologies such as high-precision imaging, enhanced perception systems, autonomous decision-making and control, as well as high-speed transmission. The development of self-driving vehicles and drone applications makes smart cities a reality. At the same time, we are deploying next-generation digital technology to develop smart industry and services. This helps companies create a more efficient and effective business operating environment and provides new smart living solutions for the public. In response to aging population, in the quality health domain, we combine Taiwan's strengths in ICT and medical care systems. Based on new clinical technology and digital healthcare services, we focus on smart medical applications such as precision medicine, digital health, and regenerative medicine to accelerate clinical trials and industrialization impact. We also provide innovative cross-field medical solutions in smart healthcare to enable high-end medical treatment and high-quality healthcare services. As climate changes and the greenhouse effect becomes more severe, to realize the objective of a sustainable environment, we have been dedicated to the development of a circular economy in order to slow down environmental pollution and thus achieve sustainable resource usage and economic development. We are also working on edge computing and smart sensor control to build intelligent manufacturing systems, hoping to play an important role in the global digital supply chain. Moreover, we are active in promoting green industry by moving towards comprehensive development of diverse energy generation, energy conservation, energy storage, and smart system integration in the green energy and environment field. ETRI's abundant innovation momentum can be traced to the persistence and continuous breakthroughs over the past 4 decades. ETRI established Taiwan's first IC demonstration factory. The innovative key materials it developed has promoted Taiwan's bicycle industry globally. Its microfiber materials helps Taiwan become the world leader in functional fabrics. ETRI also launched the first linear motor tool machine and actively integrated an industrial chain. Nowadays, ETRI is using its strengths in software and hardware integration to drive emerging technologies in smart automation, 5G, and AI, setting the groundwork for industries to move towards blue oceans. While engaging in R&D innovation, ETRI's goal of becoming a world-class think tank has won global recognition. We continue to link with global innovation networks and have branch offices in the United States, Japan, Germany, Russia, and the Netherlands. Currently, we have close partnerships with over 150 companies and academic and research institutions across the globe. Well-known international companies such as Corning, Oxford Instruments, and Asahi Kasei established their R&D centers in ETRI. ETRI has a strong IP portfolio and provides comprehensive services for industry. Through technical consultancy, along with its edge in patents and the assistance of Open Lab and the Incubation Center, ETRI provides technical services to over 18,000 companies each year. Meanwhile, it applies its R&D capacity to the special features of regional industries, forming industry alliances and clusters to promote the transformation and upgrading of local industries. By introducing innovative technologies that address real needs, local industries are able to take root and prosper. To date, ETRI has founded and incubated over 280 companies, including TSMC, UMC, TMC, Epistar, Merli, and Taiwan Biomaterial Company. This has driven continuous industrial economic development. From innovation-oriented R&D to industrial services, we use our technical capacities to better society. We actively cooperate with corporate partners and charity groups, engaging in volunteer services, and holding camps for disadvantaged children to experience the wonders of technology. We also worked with the National Science and Technology Museum to launch a tech exhibition while promoting technology education for young generations. ETRI is dedicated to driving industry development, creating economic value, and enhancing social well-being through technology.